Good evening, everybody. Can anybody hear me? Just give me a thumbs up or perfect.
Hi, Emilia.
Hi, Sadaff.
I
Great.
can hear you.
Perfect. Thank you so very much. Sadaff, we're so grateful. I know it is almost 1 a.m. where you are, so you're looking like you just woke up, which is nice. So that's very good. We're lucky and we're very pleased that finally we're able to host this webinar. So we're going to start maybe in another 2-3 minutes, just to be sure we give people time to join and that we start on time at 6 o'clock. And that should be fine, if that's okay. We'll try and round up quickly so you can get some beauty sleep, Sadaff.
Thank you.
In the chat, I have included the title of our webinar, and there's a link to Sadaff's website and profile. And feel free, please, to add questions in the chat and start a conversation as well in the chat. Sadaff and myself will keep an eye on the chat and we'll pick up stuff. We have an exercise for you. Hopefully we'll have some volunteers who will do some exercise so we can still practice this thing that we're talking about. And Sadaff has graciously accepted to host two attendees, give them a couple of one-to-one sessions on how they can amplify their authentic voice. Don't worry, you would figure out, you soon know what it's all about. And because we are a research-based center, we decided why not use the opportunity and read a few more papers. And so we've asked Sadaff if it's okay for us to at least choose two people who would write just a few words. And you're allowed to use AI, so you can ask ChatGPT or any one of them to write it for you. Just let us know that you used AI. I thought I saw Martin. Martin is not a fan. So but he will be happy to read your papers. Just a few words on why you would want Sadaff to give you a few minutes of her time to engage with you on amplifying your authentic voice.
Thank you, Emilia. Since you mentioned my name, first of all, thanks, Sadaff, for joining us. I'm also a member of the management committee, and given that we are still a few seconds short of the official beginning, thanks so much for actually joining us today at the center with your contribution. Really appreciate it. And
Thank
yes,
you.
I'm not a Luddite about AI. I just don't like marking or reading AI generated content. So, and I think that is fair enough. I think that I really like human to human communication. And, if I'm presented with communication that consists just of forms, but not meaning, I find it really not adequate that I, as a human should have to mark it and evaluate it, So if a student produces something written by AI, well, they can get it marked by AI, but not by me.
He also asks the question about authentic voice. Is using AI part of my authentic voice?
Thank you very much. I mean, this is such an interesting one because AI doesn't have a voice. It runs on probability. These are stochastic parrots and nothing. The biggest con is really to call them intelligent. They can be very useful. I don't doubt it. I'm happily use it myself, but the idea that somehow our students should be encouraged to use this for the editing of their essays, I find monstrous.
Okay, so Now we can start. It's now 6 o'clock our time, and that's a good entry point to our discussion today. So I would just want to say again, welcome everybody to our webinar today. More people will join as we proceed, but we're going to start. And we will start because Ms. Habib is 1 a.m. where she is. So so we're very, 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 very grateful that she's looking really fresh, as though she just woke up to engage with us today. So the topic we're going to be dealing with is cultivating your authentic voice in international arbitration, or in academia, or in any space that you find yourself. What Sadaff and I have agreed is that we're going to have a conversation, a discussion where we unpack what this means. We will do an exercise. So she might ask for volunteers if she's kind, or she might just okay, so I need to resend. Okay, I will resend Sadaff's website link. So she might ask for volunteers, or she might just pick on people and ask you to practice, to say. She would give you something to say, and then she'll give you feedback on how you've come across and what that means for cultivating your authentic voice. And so, Sadaff, welcome. Before we start, can I ask you to just tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and your journey in international arbitration, and why international arbitration?
Thank you so much, Emilia, and thank you so much for having me tonight, rather, in my case. No, seriously, it's such a privilege, to be honest, to talk about this topic, because it's also something that's very close to my heart, and it's been part of my journey to myself, let's say. But I'll give you a bit of my background. So I was born in Kenya, so I'm from Kenya, and my roots go back to India. So I'm from Indian origin. For the past 16 years, I've been living in Dubai. And it's interesting every time I'm asked where I'm from, because I feel like I've become quite, almost like a global citizen of sorts. And I'm sure a lot of people feel the same way in this day and age. How I got into, I feel international arbitration picked me in a way, because I initially set out as a corporate lawyer, and I thought that was my path. But I realized I was, it's in fact one of the things that we'll speak of, but I was sort of following the herd at that time, thinking this is the subject area that I'm interested in. And then we had our first arbitration case in the firm that I was working with during the time of recession. And I was like, okay, now this really sounds good. Like, this is something that I can see myself growing in and building a practice around. And yeah, that was my path to international arbitration. And it was initially mostly construction disputes, and then got more into commercial disputes. And yeah, and here I am now working as an independent arbitrator. Again, this is something that I had not imagined. Let's just say that. I had in mind that I'm going to be, just the typical sort of career ladder that you climb, or that you get into legal practice thinking about, where you're like, okay, I'm going to be associate, senior associate, partner, This is the trajectory that I'm going to follow. But then I realized at a point in my life, which was about 2.5 years ago, where I was like, this does not resound with me. And the way private practice functions and runs does not resound with my values. And yeah, that's when I decided, you know what, I am working as an arbitrator on the side. How about I do this at this stage even though, yeah, I mean, traditionally arbitrators don't really look like me, but it's okay. That's why we're here.
Which is very interesting. I think that's another webinar. What do your typical arbitrator look like? But I
Absolutely.
remember that at the Dubai Arbitration Week was last year. We were at dinner. We went to some fancy, interesting restaurant. You remember, with the team, with the group of people, and we were chatting. We're sitting next to each other and we're chatting, and that was where the idea of having a webinar on cultivating your authentic voice came from. So what is it? What is your authentic voice? What does that mean?
You know, Emilia, I ask myself this every day. And it's because so what I have realized myself is that as a society, we are conditioned, we've been programmed, whether consciously or subconsciously, it's happening. And whether it's in our professional field or in our personal field, I mean, in our personal lives, it's there. Now, when we talk about our authentic voice, it's almost like you're taking a step back and you are connecting or reconnecting with yourself to understand, okay, fine, this group of people, they believe and they act in a certain way, but do I align with that? Is it something that is that holds true to me? And it's very simple to say in words, but it's a very difficult thing to do in action, because you might not even realize that you're behaving in a certain way because it's just the way it is, you know, that's the way people are moving. And this idea of you know, following the herd or being part of the group, it goes right down to our ancestors. It's almost an ancestral fear of, you know, not of being exiled. You don't want to be exiled from the community or from the profession, or, you know, stand out as a so-called black sheep or a troublemaker or something. But it's not about that. It's about your authentic voice is about you understanding what your values are, what are your strengths, what are the things that you don't agree with because it doesn't feel right to you, not because you're doing it out of some sort of rebellion or some sort of you know, you want to create attention for yourself. No, you're doing it because every day the one person that you're going to look at is yourself in the mirror, and that's the person that holds you accountable ultimately. It's not your society, it's not your, you know, it's not even your boss, it's you. You are accountable to you. So
So
when we say what, yeah.
it sounds as though what you're talking about is individuals finding themselves, knowing themselves, and being comfortable with who they are. And not just in private life, but even in the work environment, in your profession, understanding and coming to a knowing of yourself, which is quite difficult, and it's almost being forced to mature, sort of thing, accepting your strengths, your weaknesses, and working with those. Is that the sort of thing you have in mind?
Absolutely, absolutely. And it takes time. It's not something that because obviously you are as much as you're growing as a person, you're also growing and going through different stages in your profession as well. So the way you would, for example, address a situation when you're, say, you know, starting out, is not the same way that you will address, hopefully, is not the same way that you will address the situation later on, you know? So it's not clear cut by any means, but at the same time, if we learn to first of all pause and to you know, to reflect more on ourselves, on our choices. Like, for example, when I decided to leave private practice, I spoke to arbitrators that I knew, independent arbitrators. And I remember I spoke to this one female arbitrator, and she she asked me, she was like, "But you're not married." And I was a bit like, how is that? She was coming from the angle of, your finances, how you're going to take care of your finances because you're not going to be getting a steady income and all that. But I was a bit taken aback because for me, I hadn't thought about it until she pointed it out. Now, obviously, that's her point of view. Totally fine. That's okay. But had I adopted that, I probably wouldn't be speaking to you right now. It becomes that kind of thing. It's like, yeah.
So I think I agree with that point. And sometimes, I think I would have retorted, I think men serve better other uses than just providing money for people's upkeep but anyway, that's just saucy me. But so why do you think that finding the individual, finding their authentic voice matters? Why is it important? Why should we even be discussing this?
Because the profession itself, I mean, we're talking about international arbitration. So it's not one, it involves parties from different backgrounds, from different cultures, from different approaches, the way they have been dealing with things. So if we are, I mean, it's almost like, you have a situation, but you are, that whole idea of fitting, I think it's a round peg into a square hole or something like that. We can't do that. I mean, yes, things have been done in a certain way, but we need to bring our own flavors into the profession. And by doing that, we're not taking anything out. If anything, we're adding, because being more perceptive about where people are coming from. We're listening more as opposed to just following our train of thought and our, sort of agenda. So I feel that it's an important subject, not only in our private lives, but in our professions as well. And more so because we spend a lot of time in our professions. I mean, if we were really to think about it, it's almost like there isn't a line because you're investing so much of your resources, your energy into building your practice, whether it is in, as an arbitrator, as counsel, in academia, whatever it is, whatever aspect of the profession you are in, you're putting in a lot of hours every day. And it's a shame that it's not a lot of, I don't know a lot of practitioners who would even put that same amount of time, say, for example, to get to know themselves, or even a fraction of it. Because the better you know yourself, the better you're going to show up. You will know where to draw the line. You'll know how to set boundaries, where if you're being overworked, let's say, and you know that you're being overworked, you know that you're burning out, but you're still not setting a boundary because you feel that if I set a boundary, especially for women, if I set a boundary, he's going to get the promotion. But that, that again, it becomes a slightly also different subject where you have this, scarcity and fear mindset, which needs to change as well. So, which is why I say that it's important because you need to spend time to get to know yourself in order to show up better in every area of your life, especially professionally. Yeah.
And I suppose that would help to improve your productivity, build confidence and trust. Your clients would have greater confidence and trust. And I suppose part of knowing yourself is also owning up, because we don't get it right all the time. And owning up to that and reflecting, as you have said, you said it's that ability. We need to be able to listen more. We need to be able to, I think setting boundaries is really, really hugely important. And maybe it's something we don't talk enough about, but it's hugely important to have clear boundaries in our professions, in the workplace. And you had mentioned things around that, having or knowing yourself enhances clarity and credibility.
Yes. Yes.
And I was wondering if you wanted to expand a little bit more on that.
Oh, yes. Yes. No, very good points, Emilia. And also what you said about, clients and your peers also acknowledging that, because what happens is that the more you hold yourself accountable, the more it reflects in your work, because you will not be working for the sake of, say, for example, meeting a target. You're working because you want to draft a good document, a good pleading, because you are holding yourself accountable. And that automatically trickles in to the client will see that, and they will be like, oh, okay, this is actually, it's a good piece of work, and this person has captured my arguments, they've captured the weaknesses with my case, and they know where they're heading. So it becomes that sort of it's a trickling effect, on your, and it's interesting because it's almost like we're all waiting for each other to stop being afraid and to start owning up to ourselves. And then when you start doing that, it gives courage to other people as well, you know? And it's almost like you're reflecting to them that, oh, listen, there's another way of doing things. I spoke up to, say, for example, just hypothetically, for example, if you told your partner that, you are entitled to a promotion because you've done X, Y, Z, but you stood up for yourself. That encourages, say, maybe your junior associate to be like, wait a second, I should speak up for myself. So it's almost like it becomes a cycle. Yeah.
Yeah. And I suppose we already had one example this on this webinar with Martin, freely engaging with his view and his the way he feels about submitting AI related work, and and that is important. That then gives confidence, I suppose, to others who also feel that way. Okay, and so how? So you've told us what authentic voice is. You've told us why it's important. And you've also reflected on us as, for females. And the question now is how do we do this? You think of a young associate or a new entrant into the profession, and or a student, they sort of feel, I don't know much. You get people going to conferences and they really have a desperate question they want to ask, but how to even raise the hand to then stand up with all of these people in the room, the voice just travels, and then they can't hear themselves, or they can't stop talking because they're trying to just get everything together. So how do you cultivate your authentic voice?
Yeah, that's true. And when you were saying about the whole you want to put your hand up, but you're choking. I've been there. My first, what was it? I think it was an IBA conference or something. And I was like, I want to ask a question. I can feel my heart thumping. The question is sitting in my stomach. And I'm like, no, no, no. And then the moment passes and you're like, okay, fine. It wasn't meant to happen. But then at the same time, I think it was last year when I asked a question to it was an LCIA forum, and I basically asked them to be accountable about the number of female arbitrators that are being appointed and, the new arbitrators. So I guess, see, there is that whole idea of hopefully with time you mature and you get the wisdom and you realize that it's more important to speak up rather than stay shut. Yeah, there is that aspect to it. But I don't see that it's limited to just growth in the career. So the young associate, for example, if they are, choking up in a conference, and fine, okay, but sit with the feeling. Don't try to change it, first of all. Don't start condemning yourself. Don't start guilt tripping yourself, or going in that whole cycle of, oh, yeah, I'm a qualified lawyer, but I cannot speak up, and this and that, and then you end up burying yourself even further. It's more that if we're talking practically, fine, you're at the conference, you're choking up, you're nervous as shit, Okay, sit with it. Just sit with it. See what happens. You don't have to do anything. Don't even ask the question. It's okay. It's not the last conference in the world, you know? Don't put the pressure, but just acknowledge the feeling, acknowledge what's happened, the reactions in your body, and see. Fine, okay, you're sitting with it. It will disappear, and watch it disappear. And then how do you feel? And you realize that, okay, there is something there that I need to work on. And it's, yes, we're talking about the professional context and conferences, but that associate, the junior associate, might realize that I'm probably showing up in the same way when I'm in a personal situation, that I'm not able to speak up for myself. I'm not able to say what I need from, towards a closed one. So that's how your investigation into yourself starts. But the important point to flip the story is to just pause, sit with it, don't change anything. Let it arise. If you feel like going to the toilet, run to the toilet, sit in the toilet, but just give yourself that grace, that space, and don't judge. Yes, you didn't speak at this conference. Fine. There'll be another conference. And if you do this practice, by the time you attend the next conference, or you attend, say, for example, a strategy meeting with your partner, with the client, you will speak up because you'll realize, okay, I've dealt with it. How do I feel now? Do I feel that I can say what I need to say? But it's that idea of cutting ourselves as well some slack, because there's a lot of pressure. It's a high pressure career.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is, I haven't thought of it this way. I haven't sort of engaged with it on the level of, okay, just effectively feel, because you're saying be in touch with yourself. Feel, give yourself some grace. So if I had asked myself that question, I would have been thinking, okay, things around, these are 1, 2, 3 things you can do. But I think that idea of just sitting with it and calming yourself and accepting your inability to raise your hand at this conference and dealing with all of that is really important, because that's a deeper way of excavating, if you like, what might, because you need to also understand why. Why are you not able to say something in a departmental meeting where you're with your peers? Why? I think that's also important. And I wanted to also then see whether you think there's a gender, is there a gender dimension to these sorts of issues? Do we find people who identify as men being more able to own their own voice and speak than those who identify as female?
Absolutely. I'm not even going to say that there is a gray area in that because, and it's not even, I mean, it's not even their fault, because it's the way, yes, we're talking about international arbitration, but the root of the matter goes far deeper. It's the way we've been brought up. I mean, boys are told to run around, girls are told to be careful. So it's like, imagine if you raise a girl like the way you're raising a boy, I'm sure she will not be keeping quiet, unless something happens. She will not stay shut. So the root issue definitely goes deeper. But again, that does not mean that becomes our crutch. It's more like, yes, fine. And having said that, first of all, it doesn't mean that it becomes our crutch. Secondly, we're talking about authenticity. So that does not mean that that women show up more aggressively, because that again is another form of, you're just covering up the issue. You're not showing up as yourself. And that sort of, and I've seen this with say, for example, female arbitrators who feel that there's a pressure from, if my voice needs to be heard, I need to show that I'm really like, a woman of steel. It's not necessary. You could make the same point in a way that is, it's your way of making the point. And ultimately, of course, when you're sitting as an arbitrator, it's more important that you stick to like look at the facts, look at the evidence, and then put your point forward, rather than bringing this ideas of, okay, am I being heard? No, the point is, are you driving? Are you pointing out the issue? But coming back to your question, yes, for sure there is that issue, but it's not something that we can't do anything about. In fact, if anything, we can use it to our advantage.
Okay.
Say, yes, okay, fine. As a little girl, you were told to be more careful. Fine, I'll be more careful when I'm looking at the evidence, when I'm looking at the pleadings, I will take, I'll be more empathetic to the parties or to the points of view of my co-arbitrators rather than driving forth, my agenda immediately. So we can use that, and we can use that as our asset, acknowledge it and then use it to our advantage. Yeah.
Okay. So it sounds like it goes back to that authenticity, knowing your strengths. And then how do you bring that? Because of course, even though we use the stereotype of your, generally speaking, male, female, there are men who are very empathic, who are not aggressive and all of that. So for them, it's also the same sort of identifying and acknowledging that is a strength that they can also bring into their profession. Okay, so is there anything else on how we can cultivate and looking at practical tools? What sort of practical tools can we adopt?
Yeah. So you know how I said that we should pause when we're having all those emotions and stirrings come up? The other thing is to pay attention to your breathing. Because the first thing that goes away when we're afraid is we're not breathing, or we're breathing too fast and we're not paying attention to what's happening. So the idea when we're pausing is, yes, we're sitting with the feeling, but we're also watching our breath without judgment, always without judgment. That thing of that you're letting yourself down, or you're letting your firm down. No, forget all that. You're sitting with yourself, you're honoring what is going on, and you focus on your breathing, because your mind needs to focus on something to calm down. So focus on your breath. Take, count, take an inhale for 4 counts, hold it for 4, breathe out for 4. Now, when I say this, obviously, these are the tools that, you come across, say, for example, in meditation or yoga practices and things like that. But I don't believe for 1 second that they're isolated to those areas. In fact, if anything, if we incorporate them in our, sort of like mainstream way of working, of dealing with even, when you're dealing with difficult tribunal members, or you're dealing with difficult parties, it really does help, because you're able to detach. We get emotional, fine. But if we give ourselves that, okay, we're going to focus on our breath, I'm going to detach and see what's going on, rather than see through the lens of, oh my God, this person is putting me down, or I need to make my point. But then you're fixing on that and you're missing the bigger picture. Now, again, when I'm talking about this, like, for example, sitting with the feeling or doing the breathing, we're not aiming for perfection. It's not about perfection at all. You will mess up. You will forget to count your breathing. You will be like, you might even want to cry. It's okay. Ultimately, the profession itself does put a lot of pressure to show up perfectly. So by doing these practices, don't feed into that again. Yeah. So it's just this idea of, again, I'll say this again, is this idea of showing grace to yourself. The other thing I would say, if we're talking about practical points, is that, and as you're understanding yourself, as you are, you're seeing what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, and this and that, see what your interests are. Because it could be that you have, say, for example, you enjoy playing the violin, which is wonderful. So spend time cultivating your, other sides to you, because what happens with that is that when you go back to, say, for example, your mainstream work, not only are you relaxed, but you might show up with more creativity. So when you say, for example, you're a counsel, you're working on a dispute, and it's complicated, but you might come up with a solution that is out of the box, but still legally sound, So as professionals, yes, it's a very hectic job. It's true. But we need to somehow carve out time. Violin is too much, maybe, but even say, for example, take a walk, like something small. Let's
I
start
think
with that.
that's more doable than
Yeah.
violin. But okay, we get the point.
It's like I'm adding pressure. Let's play the violin.
Great, great. Okay. And so what do you think about so sometimes we would sort of say we say to our students before they do their the advocacy part of the module that we teach on arbitration, that they can record themselves or they can stand in front of a mirror and just sort of watch their demeanor and movements and things like that. But do you think that it's useful, one, to record oneself as part of one's practice and just listen? It's very strange when you listen to yourself, a recording of your voice. And the other thing is, do you think it would be useful to just sort of have some supportive, constructive feedback, people that can give you feedback? One of the things that I have found really valuable is I have um, colleagues that a few of them, but that can give me honest feedback in a very kind way. And because there are things we do or say that we haven't sort of, it's not thought through carefully. And then they're able to graciously give me very positive feedback that I rely on. And it's helped, transform and move my practice, my teaching as well. So I was wondering what your thoughts are, if you think those are useful tools that we can also adopt.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And I like what you said about the recording because it's funny enough, it's our voice, but we feel awkward listening to our voices. And you reminded me of because my sort of creative outlet is writing poetry. And I remember the first open mic I did, I didn't watch the recording after that. I was like, I'm going to watch it after 2, 3 days. That's when I'm going to look at it. But when you do, the thing is that we don't show ourselves enough compassion. Like we can be so compassionate towards our even our colleagues, and we'll be encouraging them, and we'll be like, no, you got this and this and that. But when it comes to ourselves, we become this, master critique judgment day kind of situation, and we're like on it. So recording, absolutely. Record yourself, listen to your recording, and be kind to yourself when you're listening to it. Because there's even if you don't get it right the first time, it's okay. It's okay. I mean, I remember when I did my interview and advocacy back when I was doing the LPC, and I was shy, and I was like, and I watched the recording, and I was like, oh my God, I look so awkward. I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm following a script and asking 5 questions or whatever it was. But it's okay. I think we forget that part, that it's actually okay. But what the recording helps us, especially to observe, is not only can we listen to the rhythm of our voice, and are we, for example, are we clear? Are we speaking clearly? Is the inner tremor showing up in, the rhythm of the voice? Am I being also sort of, structured? Am I putting out a structured argument where it's an advocacy? Or am I sort of all over the place? So those things, or am I using fillers? Am I using a lot of fillers and I'm not being clear? So those kind of things can really come out very helpfully in a recording, I feel. And especially if you're doing a video recording, then you can also watch your facial expressions and your body language. Are your hands sort of closed and clamped up and because you're trying to control your sweat, or are you open to engaging with the process? So definitely recording helps. And I like what you said very much about your colleagues giving you honest and kind feedback, because those two words I feel are very important. When you are, our voice is our way of interacting with the world. And when we are growing into our voice, when we are uncovering our authentic voice, our authentic way of being, we need people around us who we can trust, who are not going to sabotage us, you know? So that idea of having honest and kind people who can give you feedback, whether your colleagues or whether even like a coach or something, or your mentors, that sort of thing is important. But I would really emphasize the point that trust, if you're going to trust somebody with that kind of feedback, make sure that they have your best interests at heart, because otherwise it just becomes, yeah.
And I suppose that means that we ourselves must then learn to give honest and kind feedback to other people. So, you know, that would also be helpful. Okay, so great. We've been chatting for almost 35 minutes. So we now need to do some exercise. What exercise do you have in mind, and what do you want? Let's try this. Anybody?
Yeah.
What question? What do you want them to do before we open up for Q&A?
Okay, so I thought that I would present a scenario and ask the attendees to put themselves in that scenario, and how would they respond? Exactly how would they respond? And then we can see what they're, even if it's not, I mean, doesn't have to be a scripted answer, just how, you know, they would react, say, for example, yeah? So the scenario I was thinking of is, say, for example, you are, it's your first appointment as an arbitrator, as chair of the tribunal, okay? And your two co-arbitrators are very senior practitioners, highly seasoned. They come from, say, the European American background. Two male co-arbitrators, and there you are. It's your first appointment as chair. You're, say, a relatively young arbitrator, so to speak. And during the hearing, so you have the two parties. You have, say, for example, the claimant might be a state-owned African entity. The respondent is, let's say, a European company, a European multinational. And you see during the hearing, as the chair of the tribunal, you're observing this, that the African party is not getting enough time to respond. They're not able to put forward their case properly, because the European multinational, the lawyers are being really aggressive in their questioning, in their submissions and everything. You also see that your co-arbitrators are being very, you know, detached about the whole thing, and they're being very, very formal and not really engaging. And you feel you're reaching a point where you're like, it's reaching a point where it's procedurally becoming unfair. So are you going to choose to react in the same way that your co-arbitrators are reacting? Because these are very senior practitioners. So do you see that that is the right way to react, or are you going to address the issue? And how would you address it?
Okay, I was trying to type as fast as I can and to summarize. So there's something in the Q&A just gives you a basic background of the fact pattern that you can quickly scan through. Hopefully I got the basics. So how would you address this?
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly.
Okay. And you want anybody that you select now would need to say something for maximum 30 seconds. Yes?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So you have 30 seconds. And so do we have any volunteers? Augustino, you're a savior. So Augustino, yes. So Augustino will say something, then Nuhu, you each have 30 seconds max. Then Mark would, number 3, I need a female. I need a female before I choose one. Okay, let's start. Natasha, bless you. So Natasha would then have a go. So Augustino, 30 seconds. Please unmute.
Thank you, Professor.
And if you can switch on your video, can you switch on your video, please? So we can also give you some good feedback on that.
Sorry, I'm in a car, but...
Okay, that's fine. Go on. Go on. Okay, just speak. 30 seconds starts now.
I'm from Tanzania.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm going to do, I'm going to give an order and to remind the members of the
No,
tribunal.
we need you to
that-
do it. How will you say it? Say it. Say what you're going to say.
I'm going to remind them about the rule of impartiality on the arbitration.
Okay.
I'm going to remind them on the rule of impartiality on arbitration.
Okay. Perfect. Okay, great. Thank you very much. Okay, so
Thank you.
Nuhu, 30 seconds.
Yes, thank you. As a chair, what I would do is simply I will call for order, and then I will explain that. As a because as a chair, I feel that
We
I have
need
to moderate.
you to say it. So you have 30 seconds to say something to the parties, your co-arbitrators.
Respected colleagues, I think we have to have some ground rules to guide us in this particular discussion, so that at least no party is being treated unfairly. But so we need to have equal time for each party to actually present his or her case. And that is what I want us to do to move on with the case. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nuhu. Mark, 30 seconds. What exactly will you say?
Thank you so much, Professor. Thank you so much, Ms. Habib. Mine would be, firstly, this wouldn't be in front of the parties. It would be to the senior co-panelists
10
outside.
seconds.
Okay, so co-tribunal members, I have noticed that one of the parties is not getting an adequate opportunity to express themselves and to ventilate their arguments. I would first like to hear your opinions on this before proceeding with my views on the same. So my assumption is they would give their opinions, and then I would then proceed to tell them, depending on what they have said, to say that, to remind them about the rules that we've adhered to, and to tell them that it can't proceed.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Natasha, you're next.
Hello. So, like Mark, I agree that this conversation wouldn't take place in front of the parties because you wouldn't want to undermine senior practitioners. But I think what we should do is say something like, we need to ensure that both parties are given a fair and equal opportunity, like draw exactly from the procedural rules that apply to the proceedings, cite specific examples, and say that I'm concerned that these examples show that our current approach may be creating an imbalance, and then focus on the outcome of the arbitration, like not make it personal, but show that if the proceedings are tainted and the award is ultimately liable to set aside, then the whole process is fruitless. So we should say.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Natasha. Is there anybody else who would be happy to say something? 30 seconds. What would you say? Okay. So, Sadaff will give us some feedback. What do you think? Thank you so very much to the 4 volunteers. That was very, very kind. Sadaff.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So I liked Nuhu's approach because he was very direct. He was like, this is what we need to, we need to hear from both parties, and we need to go back and treat them equally. Mark, I really liked your smile. You have a very big smile, which is very warm and welcoming, like when you're addressing such a point, with your co-arbitrators. I do feel that you don't need to be that formal because remember, they are your peers. Even if they are seasoned practitioners, that's fine. That's a different issue. That's age. It's not relevant. You're right now, you're in a position of power, so you don't need to be overly formal with them. You can be direct and yet polite. You don't have to be rude or aggressive or anything, but no need to be too formal. Natasha, I feel like you're very thorough, which is excellent. But for something like this, you don't need to now go into the rules and find a lot of basis and a lot of solid ground for the point that you're making. Because if it is evident to you as chair that one party is not getting, or if they're getting interrupted, or if they're not getting enough time, you make the point. and you see what their responses are. And if the co-arbitrators don't agree with you, then at that point you can go into the procedural issues at hand and what can happen. Now, having said that, all of you took the approach of sort of, taking a break in the proceedings and having deliberations on the side. That's one way of doing it, true, but you could also be more direct. You could speak out during the hearing and say, before I proceed, I would like to hear from the claimant without interruptions, if interruptions is an issue. Or I can see that the respondent is taking more time. The claimant deserves the same amount of time, even without consulting your arbitrators, because in this particular scenario, you're going back to the procedure. You're not it's not like it's a substantive issue and you're making a decision without consulting with your co-arbitrators. No. The thing is that what's happening in front of you is that you can see one party is being interrupted, and it's a procedure thing. So it's not, I would say that you could just be direct and in a nice way. Doesn't have to be aggressive or anything, but you could say, before we proceed, can the claimant continue with its arguments without interruptions? Simple as that, even without consulting your co-arbitrators. Emilia, what do you think? Would you agree?
I very much agree. And what the other thing is, just remembering that when you're chair, you are the person in charge of the proceedings. It's your responsibility that the proceedings go smoothly and that both sides get opportunity, or a fair opportunity, to present their case. I think in arbitration, a lot would also depend on the agreements you've made earlier on. So are people going to have equal time? How would submissions be made and all of that? But I do agree. And it's just having firmness in your voice, not in a nice way. I love to smile and laugh. So even within arbitration proceedings, I like it when people are a little bit, just calm, just sort of relax
Shake it off, yeah.
Exactly, relax your muscles and all of that. And I make little jokes, clean ones here and there, and try to just help people to relax. I find that when I smile or if I laugh, my muscles relax. I'm not, really like tensed up and all of that. I think that helps. It helps me, and I try to use that. So far, I have gotten away with it, and it's worked without being accused of being mischievous or siding or being biased. Great. So Sadaff, should we take some questions and then you give us your final words? Yes. So a huge thank you for that exercise. We hope you enjoyed it. We wanted something interactive. So a huge thank you for participating. Any questions?
Exercise your authentic voice. It's your time.
Mark, thank you very much. Go on. What's your question?
Thank you so much once more for the excellent presentation, and thank you for the exercise. It's been very eye-opening. I know at the beginning of your presentation you said you're a global citizen, but I'm from Kenya as well, so hopefully, yeah. So at least we're
Habari yako.
very sad. Yeah, so at least we share something in common.
Am I sensing that the tribunal is biased?
Prof, I agree with you.
You agree with me. Thank you very much. My Kenya people. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, I found that it's been really good, and I really like the way you split your discussion into the what, the why, and the how. And so my question really relates into the how. And I know you discussed this from the point of view of a conference, sort of how to cultivate your authentic voice in a conference is very helpful, especially for someone like me. So I'm in academia. I'm a PhD candidate. And so sort of starting at the bottom of the ladder, trying to climb up. And my question sort of relates to a situation, be it in academia or be it in the office setting. How would you, what suggestions would you give to cultivate your authentic voice? And I guess it touches on the scenario we've just had, where oftentimes you're surrounded by people who are much more senior than you, and obviously people you have a lot of respect for and people you have a lot of admiration for. It can be sometimes difficult to sort of cultivate that authentic voice of yours in such a setting, vis-a-vis in a setting where you're sort of independent. So what sort of guidance or techniques would you give in a situation where you're sort of starting off and you're trying to cultivate your authentic voice amongst people who are very respected and very accomplished in your field?
That's a very good question. And you know what? It happens. Like when I was appointed for, and I was working with like very senior arbitrators. This was like initially when I had to, take a step back with myself. So I was feeling the pressure. I was like, okay, no, I need to make sure I get every single thing right, from the procedural order, from the first procedural order, from my communications, from my emails to them, and mind you, these are my peers. And I was putting a lot of pressure on myself, by myself. Okay. Nobody was there telling me that, oh, you have to do. No, nothing. This was me doing it to me. And what I realized was that because I was stressing out like this in the initial part of the proceedings, I was making silly mistakes. The kind of mistakes you're left like, this is a joke, like you wouldn't do this. Yeah. And I was like, wait a second, Sadaff, you need to just take a step back. Like you are, because in my mind, I'm making this whole idea of age or seniority or experience an issue, a factor. It's being projected that way. But once I stopped doing that and I was like, okay, focus on the case. What is needed right now? What directions do we need to give to the parties? How am I drafting this? Why am I drafting this like this? Is it reflective of what I think is the right approach? When I switched off that sort of, okay, I'm saying switched off, it's not as easy as switching off, but when I acknowledged and accepted, okay, this is where I'm putting my attention, instead of putting my attention in the case, that made a difference. So I would say that, again, it's a question of acknowledging, yes, okay, fine, I'm feeling intimidated. It's okay, it's fine. But when you start thinking of it that, no, I'm actually going to learn from them. It's going to be a learning experience, not only to learn from them, but also for me to grow into my power. Like what Emilia said, it's very important for you to remember that when you're acting as chair, or even when you're counsel and your opposing counsel is, say, a senior, whatever, QC or KC or whatever it is, don't be intimidated by that. You are in an equal position of power, and that's what matters. So you need to almost bring yourself back to reality, and it is reality. But because you're creating this thing of, no, they have more experience, what are they going to think about me, I'm going to mess up, it will happen. So you need to stop projecting that. And once you stop, everything falls into place. Because I saw it firsthand. I'm telling you, firsthand experience. That's what happened with me. And I was like, okay, fine. So I was the one who was causing misery to myself,
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Thank you so much for that.
Don't be Mark. Don't be intimidated. We all get intimidated. It's natural, but at the same time, just remember the person that you are seeing they have gone through a similar. It's not like they just got there overnight, Yeah. And they're humans as well, and you're human as well. It's okay. Yeah.
I think I can't agree more. Those are really, really excellent advice. And the key thing, again, to remember, so what Sadaff has said is focus on the task at hand.
Yeah.
Leave all the other, and I think a lot for us Africans, because of the way we're brought up, we sort of really respect older people. Mm-hmm. We have this thing about the older you are, the wiser you are. Don't know whether it's true or not, but that's not the point. Yeah. But, that's the way we're brought up. So what we find ourselves is, just because this person is older or holds a higher position in the workplace or wherever, we automatically have this unhealthy respect. And so maybe one way what we need to do is in our minds and in our brains, at least we can deal with ourselves, is to switch and the task at hand. It takes a while to make that switch. And I think the other thing is that ultimately we're all human beings. What I say to myself is that all the generic bodily functions that everybody goes through. so everybody goes through that. So they're human being. They eat, I eat. They do what they need to do after eating. I do what I need to do after it. So that's it. So where that's a leveling field. I think you have to give yourself reasons and understanding, knowing yourself, to just help you reflect your real person, who you are. Thank
And
you
laugh
very,
about
very
it. And laugh about
Yes.
it.
Thank
I
you
mean,
for
it's
endorsing
really
this my laugh thing. Thank you. Martin, I know, so Professor Martin Lau is on the webinar. So, Prof.
I'm still
Prof
here.
is the one who doesn't like AI. He has told us. He likes AI.
No, this is a
He likes AI.
misrepresentation.
No, he likes AI, but he doesn't like when AI replaces the person. Yes?
Correct.
Okay, we're not talking about AI, authentic voice.
Exactly. No. I think this is such an eye-opener, because clearly this is what is missing in AI-generated content and generation. So you have form, but no meaning. So a computer might also, project an authentic voice, but it is not authentic. It's just mimicry. And so I think this particular webinar, I think, really has emphasized this particular point and this key difference. So I think we're kind of easily we overestimate AI because it seems so human-like, but it is only human-like. It is not human. And I think your difference, Emilia, perhaps brings it home. It is immortal. It has no stake in whatever is written or in what AI interacts with. It has no bodily functions. It has no sense of reality. It can't experience the world. It is just putting words together to a pattern that is governed by probability. And that probability might indicate that it is going to adopt the voice of a family member or a close friend or senior arbitrator, but is only doing this not because it is a meaning, but because it can function in that way given its data set. And this, apart from all the other kind of obvious issues of AI with biases and environmental costs and unequal distribution in the world, there's, I think, the only two big data centers which actually can generate AI content. In Africa, I think there are just two. The others are all in the US, China. The majority of African languages don't function on AI at all. It's heavily represented in Chinese and English. So I think in terms of authentic voice, there are really very obvious problems with AI. And that doesn't mean that I don't use AI or that it isn't a useful tool. But I think we should definitely always be aware of its limitations and its biases.
I can't agree more with you, Martin. And that's why we sort of most heavily discourage just submitting extracts from what we pull out of AI, because that's not you. That's not it's not your
not
voice.
An authentic voice. Yes, and so if I read a student's essay that has been edited by AI, I'm sure it's all correct, it's nicely done, but how can I actually comment on the student's authentic voice if content has been edited by a large language machine that has been fed mainly on content generated by old white men? And that is, you know, the data set that is going to be the editing of our students' work and which we actually have to read and comment on. So, I mean, I say no more. I'm in favor of AI in terms of, you know, helping me with my work, but I certainly think that, you know, there's certain parts of our activities, especially those which require an authentic voice, where AI use actually is quite risky and should be discouraged.
I completely agree with you on that. So I now turn, thank you very, very much, Martin and Sadaff. Any final thoughts that you want us to keep thinking about when we finish the webinar?
I would say first and foremost, own your voice. And when we talk about owning our voice, it's not just obviously the actual expression of our vocal cords, but even in terms of, I mean, you might not even want to speak on a panel. You might be much more happier, and your skill set might be to be a strong writer. So explore that fully. Spend time getting to know yourself in a deeper way, without judgment, without criticism. Just observe yourself, you know, take time, whether it's to go out for a walk or sit for 5 minutes in silence, even just 5 minutes, but just watch what's going on in your mind. Watch where you're putting your energy. Are you putting your energy towards that comment, that criticism that maybe, you know, your partner or lecturer, whatever it was, made, and are you feeding that, or are you reflecting and you want to show up better? So spend time getting to know yourself, because honestly, you're the one person you're always going to live with. Like that's the one consistent thing, you know, in life, that you're answerable to you. And the last thing I would say is dare to be unique, dare to be yourself, and see what happens. See how things start changing around you, how opportunities come up in different ways, unexpected ways. Why? Because you're honoring yourself. Not just personally, but professionally as well. Yeah.
And Sadaff, I just kind of, whilst you were talking, I just remembered kind of perhaps an interesting anecdote which kind of underlines, you know, your comments, and that is about Mahatma Gandhi, who, of course, kind of, you know, has obvious kind of African connections, but he had studied for the bar, became a member of Inner Temple, and returned as a barrister to Bombay to practice law, as his parents kind of expected. But in his first appearance in the Bombay, I think, magistrate's court, he was too nervous. He just couldn't do it. He was too nervous to ask a question. And actually, he could not continue with his legal practice. But as we know, he did find his authentic voice eventually.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Martin. Yes, exactly. And in fact, what I loved about Mahatma, he said he was interviewed by a reporter, and the reporter asked him, if there was one message you had for the world, what would it be? He's like, my life is my message. And that's it. That's exactly what it is. You know, so we are isolating and we're compartmentalizing personal, professional, all that, but it's all your life. They're all aspects of your life. Oh, I'm so happy that you brought him up. Yeah, what a perfect ending. Seriously.
Thank you so very much. This has been wonderful. Thank you so very much. Martin, can you just thank Sadaff on our behalf, and then we will close?
Yes, Mrs. Sadaff, Habib, thank you very much. It's been a real pleasure and an honor, actually, to have you at our webinar. And I think we've all, I can speak for all of us, really kind of hugely benefited from this, very informative, fruitful, and interactive session. So thanks so much. It's been a really productive way of spending this one hour here. So thank you very much.
Oh, thank you so much, Martin. Thank you. And thank you so much, Emilia. I'm so happy that we finally did this. We made it happen. Thank you. Oh,
very much so.
There's a hand up. Are we?
Tucci, did you want to say something? Or you're clapping, you're trying to clap or say something.
Excellent.
Yeah. Sorry, I was trying to clap. Thank you so
You are
much.
trying
for
to
the
clap.
webinar.
Okay, it's lovely to hear your voice
Okay,
anyway.
thank you.
Thank you so very much. Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
Bye,
so
And thank
much.
you
everybody.
to
See
Thank
you
you,
you.
again
Emilia, for
soon.
sharing
Thank
this.
you.
Take care.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye
Bye.
bye.